Welcome to Rooted, where we become more rooted in our faith and growing in community. I'm Sarah, and I have Pastor Jake with us this week, and Julie.
Here.
Yep. And Pastor Mark with us this week.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing?
How's everybody doing today?
Good. Feeling great. Rejuvenated.
Feels strange for me because I'm usually sitting on that side, and this week I'm on this side.
I took this seat.
You know, it's just hard, man.
Sorry.
It's like when people are repetitive in their nature, you know what I mean? They get in these routines.
Yep.
It's like when you come into a church, I'm sure some people who visit for the first time, they end up, well, let's just sit here. And guess what happens the next week? They come back. They want to go right back to the same place they sat the week before and the week before that. And so when I'm at a routine here, so I hope I can get adjusted well.
Well, I just want to take a second and allow everybody around the table to give a highlight from your week this week.
Oh, my.
It can be super spiritual, or it does not have to be super spiritual. However, just a highlight.
For me, last week was a busy week, but a good week. We actually had a wedding here midweek last week. So shout out to Travis and Julia Klein.
Yay.
I've done a few weddings, and I've never done one in the middle of the week.
That's
on
awesome.
Wednesday, and they had their own personal reasons for it, which is awesome. But that was the high of my week, just seeing two people just join their lives together and honor God in that. So shout out to Team Klein.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was high of my week.
Very good.
I had a very busy weekend. We had our kids, E-Kids Summer Splash event, which was totally amazing. We had 250 people come out for that.
Crazy.
So it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And then our e-nursery kindergarten graduation was on Sunday. So we had 23 kindergartners pop up to E-Kids.
That's wild.
So that was emotional for everybody, for the kids, for the parents, for Miss Nay, who has loved on them so well for so long. So we're going to take good care of them in E-Kids.
Yay.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Highlight of the week from last week.
Yeah, from this past
Oh,
week.
well, I was on vacation, so the whole week
whole
was a
week.
highlight.
Hey, now.
That's right.
We were on vacation last week. Took some time for the family and just kind of get ready for the get refreshed for the long haul of fall is what I'm calling it. It's a long haul of fall.
Better
We've got-
copyright that.
We've got a
Trademark.
lot of stuff that's going into Easter right on the short, long haul of fall. We just have we got a lot happening around the church in the fall. Leads right into the wintertime with all the events we have, and small groups are starting back up.
That's right.
And then we've got the holidays and all the services that we have for the holidays. Just a lot happening all the time. And so we just took a reprieve and got a deep breath and spent a lot of time on the beach. And it was a staycation, you know, so we stayed home. And
good.
we did, cleaned out the attic and the garage. That's what we consider fun on vacation.
Productive and
went
fun.
to the beach.
Yeah.
And so it was a great week.
It was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's going to make for sermon illustrations to come.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
It's coming.
100%. Yep.
That's right. Yeah, I would say I get fueled by being with family. So the highlight of my week was just having the opportunity just to slow down for a little bit and have some intentional time as a family.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was thinking about this morning, we never have movie nights anymore because we're always running in different directions a lot of nights. And so we actually got to have a movie night this week as a family. Everybody piled on the couch together, and
Let's go.
just even moments like that are just special, precious moments. So
Another special moment is I had some Island Creamery as well.
Yes, we
Been
did.
trying to get my diet back right, trying to eat right, trying to do right. But I slipped.
scoop?
I fell.
Two scoop?
No.
Oh,
Just
one
what?
scoop.
Hey,
scoop.
there you go. That's curbing that
I had
thing.
that cake batter, baby. Had that cake batter, and it was
Yes.
mwah.
One
It was
scoop mark.
delish. That's
Doesn't
right.
sound as good.
No, it doesn't.
That's right. Well, since we were on vacation this week, Pastor Jake brought the word
It did.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was able not to tune in yesterday or on Sunday, but I was able to tune in this morning, and you brought a great word from Hebrews 12.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of dive into that, the title of your message was Growing Through the Motions.
Yeah.
I love that because we hear that phrase going through the motions often, but the growing through the motions, and how growth is a huge part to our spiritual journey. and relationship with the Lord. And you talked a lot about Aria this
I did. Yep.
past Sunday.
What a cutie.
And she is
Gosh, she's adorable.
awesome. And she's growing, and we get to see her grow,
Yeah.
which is so cool. But we see that through our kids. We
Yep.
all around the table have kids in, so we get to watch them grow. And you were talking about how in Hebrews 12:5-13, that you really the writer is painting a picture of the father
Yeah.
and his kids and that growth, and how a child wants to imitate
Right.
their parent. And you talked about Aria and how and some of the things that she's picked up in imitating you and
Yeah.
imitating, what's the farmer's name?
Alan.
Alan.
Yeah, he's the man.
Who watches her every week.
Yeah.
But your first point was that God's kids don't give up. And so I was just thinking about how, what are some reasons during our spiritual walk and in the growth process? What are some of the reasons that we are tempted or want to give up?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to my mind is because I think it's what our flesh really desires. Like our flesh doesn't desire to change anything. We don't
Right.
desire to become a better version of ourselves. Like
Right.
now there are people who like are really self-motivated and really and people who don't know Jesus that really are accomplished in changing themselves. But I believe that like really true,
Right.
genuine, deep change, it comes when we allow the Spirit of God to come into our lives and really direct and guide our mindset. But I think that the reason that we're resistant and the reason that we don't like to change is because it's easier to not.
Yeah.
It's easier to just give up and just exist where we're at.
Right.
Because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, even sometimes just the busyness of life, you get distracted more than like you just don't want to. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
the distraction gets you so far off course sometimes
Right.
that, that's where it is more than like you just don't have the desire,
Yeah.
Right.
to change or want to change or be motivated. It's just
Yeah.
life, unfortunately,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Going along with what both of you said, I think sometimes, we don't want to push through because it's hard.
Yep.
Hard happens.
Yep.
That's part of life.
Yep.
Hard is going to happen. The key is in all of it, how will you handle hard? How are you going to handle it?
Yep.
And I think a lot of people run from it and
Yeah.
resist it
Yep.
rather than seeing it as part of our growth or our development. You
Yep.
know,
Right.
I just want to give up. I'm tired of it. It's too hard.
Yeah.
Right.
And but it's so key in the development of what God wants to do.
Yeah.
So the real question is, how do you handle hard? What do you do with it?
What do you
Yeah.
do with it?
That's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking a lot of it is a mindset. I don't love hard. Like most people don't love hard. And so a lot of times my mind I shut down. I shut off when things do get hard.
Yeah.
And so to try to combat that, I have to start thinking, okay, what is God, and you touched on this, what is God trying to do in this season of hard? What is he trying to develop in me?
Right.
And then I go worst case scenario too. Okay, so if I do take this next step, this is worst case scenario. Is God still going to be with me in this? Is he still going to be faithful to me through this?
Yep.
And I've got to trust, just like you talked about Romans 8:28, that he is going to work all things
Yeah.
for good. And for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. But yeah, sometimes it's just, I will get stuck there. Just knowing me personally, I'll get stuck there if I don't go through that whole routine of, okay, let's walk through the worst case scenario.
Yep.
Because I am an overthinker and I don't want to face hard at all.
Yeah.
So as long as I kind of work my mindset through that process, and once I know, okay, no, I trust you, God, no matter what. And so I can do this. I can walk through this hard thing.
Yeah.
So, but
Absolutely.
I know not everybody has that mentality.
Yeah.
So, what has become your don't give up mentality? Like, what does that look like personally for you?
I think you said just the renewing of your mind. That's my favorite verse, speaking in Romans, and just renewing your mind constantly, because it's what we have to do. Like this world, like I was saying before, distracts us in so many different ways that if we don't renew our minds to what we're, the race we're on and what we're trying to do and what we're going for, like I was saying, you just get off course, you know? So you have to just the renewing of your mind constantly and refocusing, focusing on God.
Right.
It's funny because we talked, sometimes our E-Kid sermons line up with what you guys are preaching so well. And we kind of talked about this on Sunday too, like the ways of the world and then like the ways of God and the ways of the world, even though they're all of our favorite things and we love them, you know, the ways of God are what is true and what is honorable and all of those things.
Yeah.
And that becomes blurry. You know, God's way becomes blurry and we need to focus.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so much on renewing your mind, focusing each step. You know, you're focusing on God and his way. And, you know, he has everything is going to turn out for the good. He has a plan for us.
Right.
And so focusing on him is just where it needs to be. And like you're saying, our flesh doesn't always want to focus, you know, on the things that are good.
Right.
So constantly redirecting and staying focused on the race that we're on.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think when I very, very similar to what you're saying, just going through seasons of my life, this is something Pastor Mark and Pastor Ted really have kind of not in like a harsh way at all, but really just like got into my mentality and been like, hey, sometimes you just got to go through seasoning. Like I know you remember that conversation we had, and it's the seasoning, like literally going through seasons of life and learning in those seasons how to deal with certain things, how to deal with different things, and like you're saying, focusing on who God was in one season. And if he's the same God who he says he is, which he is, he's the same God of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, then the same God who brought me through that one season, this one's not that much different. I know my feelings are different maybe about the situation, but my God isn't different.
Right.
And so I'm remembering his faithfulness in those seasons and knowing that he's going to come through again. And that doesn't mean that like for me, I don't feel better when I think those things, but I know better, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because our emotions are always changing. They're always fleeting. They're always shifting. That's why we cannot build our life on that unsteady foundation.
Right.
That's why we have to build our life, our thought processes on the word of God, on the truths of God.
Yeah.
That's why it's so critical. I know we talk about it a lot on this podcast
Yeah.
about really being rooted in our word.
Right.
But if I know who God is and I know what he's done, then that's why I won't give up,
Right.
because he's faithful.
Yeah. That's so good.
I think it's different for everybody. Everybody's mentality is different on
Yes.
how we get through it, the grit to endure.
Right.
I come
our
from
makeup is different.
Yeah,
The way
absolutely.
that we
Yes.
And so for me, I'm naturally bent on I'm gonna find a way.
yes.
You can ask her. The worst thing anybody could ever do to me is tell me you can't do it
Right.
or it can't be done.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna find a way.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just who I am. That's just how I'm wired and my
Yeah.
personality. Even in hard, if the only thing I can do is hold on to God, I'm gonna find a way to hold on to God.
Come
Right.
on.
Even if I can't find my way forward,
Yep.
I'm gonna hold on to God in this moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing that's gonna get me through. Even if that's my response, that's just my character and my makeup.
Yes.
Right.
So I think it looks different for all of us.
Yeah.
How we do that.
Right.
And so that's kind of my 2 cents on that. For me, it's just, hey, I'm gonna dig in.
Right.
I'm gonna find a way. God's gonna reveal it. I don't know now, but I will then.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's just kind of my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what makes us work really well together, because he has that mentality and I have the shutdown
Right. Yeah, yeah.
mentality. And so a lot of times he is the one that draws me out of that. Like, come on, like lift your eyes up. Like, let's keep going.
Yep.
You know who God is and you can trust him with that.
Right.
And so, yeah, having people that can help you with that based on what your typical mentality is, or in the natural realm your mentality is, and to really fight through that is
It doesn't
hard,
mean
but
I don't
good.
go through seasons of venting though, because she talks me off the edge.
That's
Right.
true too.
That's her personality.
Good balance.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, it is. So, all right. So God's kids don't give up. I loved how you also talked about the bird's eye view or God's God eye view.
Yeah.
and looking for the good in every circumstance, which
Right.
I think with the don't give up mentality is a great perspective to have. And I think throughout this, with developing our grit, keeping that in focus,
Yeah.
and knowing that, we got to stop asking, why, God, are you doing this? Or why am I going through this? And switch are the questions that we ask
Yeah.
can help us as well by asking, God, what are you trying to build in me, or do through me?
Right.
Or what are you trying to reveal to me in this season?
Yeah.
I think those are great questions that will help us not give up in this journey of faith as well. Your second point was that you never stay the same. And this one steps on my toes, Jake, because,
Me too.
oh man, that's a tough one.
Yep.
That is a tough one in this walk. And I loved how you talked about your coach that said, remind me
You
the
get better
exact words.
or you get worse.
You get
never
better.
stay the same.
Yes, that is so true.
Yep.
But we don't like to look at it that way. We
Yep.
like to look at it, oh, I'm just the same person, or
Yeah.
I've stayed exactly the same, but it's true.
Yep.
We do get worse if we're not getting better,
Yeah.
And growth is a tough thing in this walk. So, but if growth is the goal, what are some of the disciplines that you have placed in your life? Because yes, just as we were reading through Hebrews 12, God disciplines us.
Yes.
But we also have to put disciplines in place in order to encourage us and keep us growing in our walk. So what are some of the disciplines that you've put in place in your own faith walk?
Yeah, this is one, I don't really know how faith related it is, but in terms of like my phone, and like kind of like our generation, I would say like
Yeah.
can be really addicted, but then there can also be some really negative things on our phone. And one thing that we've talked about, especially like within the group of the guys, and I'm sure everybody can struggle with it, but like just with our pursuit of being pure people, like protecting our eyes, protecting our souls, protecting our ears, protecting our everything. Sometimes you got to get rid of things on your phone.
Yeah.
And so for me, one of the things that I had to do is I had to delete certain apps. I had to put in precautions on my phone. I had to have
Right.
people that I'm accountable to.
Yeah.
And just so people know, when you're accountable to somebody, that doesn't mean that they're always checking in on you, although that is a good thing. It means that when you're accountable, you're telling on yourself to other people,
Yeah.
saying, hey, I messed up here. I need you to check in on me with this specific thing. But for me, it's really just like protecting. I'm saying no to something on my phone so that I can say yes to this thing that God is trying to develop in me.
Right.
And I think of it, there's this term called opportunity cost, which is in the business world. But every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to everything else.
Right.
And vice versa. Once you say no to something, you can say yes to something else. And so for me, I didn't want to give up certain apps because I would get my sports updates there. I would get a lot of information, but there would also be temptation on there, being real. And so for me, a very applicable thing was I had to deny myself. I said, you know what? I cannot have this on my phone. I cannot have this accessible to me because that's gonna trip me up. That's gonna cripple my calling.
Yeah.
And what do I value? Some good information for my head or the calling that God has on my life? And so for me, the discipline is really just saying really no to what's convenient, what's easy,
Right.
and maybe what I want, giving up what I want now for what I want most later. So
That's what I was going to
good.
say about that. Let's redefine what discipline is, because we have a negative thought when we talk about
yeah,
discipline.
sure.
Discipline is freedom.
Yes.
We don't see it that way.
Correct.
Right.
But discipline brings freedom.
Yes.
So discipline is denying now for what will be better later.
Right.
Very much with what you said. And so we have to get in that mindset of, what do I have to do now?
Right.
Say no to now, because I know this is going to set me up later.
Yep.
Better later.
Yeah.
Because you're going to pay a cost regardless.
Yes.
We're always paying a cost.
Yep.
And so the question is, do you want to pay the cost for what you really want later? To say no now for what you really want later? Or are
Right.
you willing to pay the cost to give in and accept what you want now?
Right.
Yeah.
And refuse what is later?
Yeah.
That's really the real question. And so I think there's a sense of freedom that comes
Yep.
with living a life of discipline. And so, and that brings a structure. It's kind of the guardrails. It's the bumpers at the bowling alley. Okay.
Yes.
If you don't want to go in the ditch, you don't want to go in the gutter,
Yep.
make sure you set those bumpers up, because that'll keep you down a straight path. And that's a very similar thing with what discipline is.
Yep.
And so for me, I think it's mind, body, and spirit. We've had this conversation multiple times as a staff and with, I know, the campus pastors. I know for me, mind, body, spirit, it's like a three-legged stool. And when something is removed, the whole thing comes crashing down.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure that my mind, body, and my spirit are all working together.
Yes.
In discipline with one another, because that's the best version of me
Right.
possible.
Yeah.
So I notice a difference. And so I have to make sure all three are together and make sure my life is in balance. Because if not, I know I'm going to fall in one area or the other.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, mine too is like staying true to your commitments that you've made to God and made to your walk. You know, I think of small group, like I've committed, like I'm going every time. You know what I mean? Like no matter what, because it's so easy to be like, oh, and then you just fall off, you know?
Yes.
Practice what you preach. I mean, I'm down there telling kids, you know, kind of on this route, like, you know, there's lots of things on TikTok and YouTube and things that we eat and whatever it is that I'm preaching to the kids.
Right.
Like, I need to be committed to like I'm preaching this to the kids. This is for me too.
Yes.
You know, this is for all of the adults in the room as well.
Yeah.
And committing to that like I can't, you know, be standing up here in my pulpit of e-kids, you know, saying one thing and doing another thing. And I think that just I'm true to the commitment I've made to this walk, and I'm going to grow through it. You know, that there's that's part of it is, you know, you have to be committed to your Christian walk, because it is I'll say hourly, but it's every second
Right.
temptations and things that could very much get you off cue for, you know, in a second of time. So just knowing that, you know, I've committed to this thing, I've committed to Jesus, He committed to me. So, you know, I'm going to do all that I can to make Him proud. You know, you want to make your parents proud. And so, everything I do, making sure that it's something that, you know, He's being proud of me for.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I think too. I think it's Kevin Myers that once said that it's balance between the mechanical and the mystery. And I think that, you know, sometimes we can get so caught up in the mystery of who God is, and, you know, into worship and prayer and like just the mystery of God. But the mechanical is such an important part of our walk with the Lord and relationship with Him as well, that we have to have a plan. We have to put things into practice in our lives.
Yeah.
So, you know, my mom says all the time, she's like, you know, sometimes I have to starve myself of sleep so that I can spend more time with God. And that's always stuck with me, because there is sacrifice in choosing and in developing your relationship with the Lord. You have to create space and create time to spend with Him. And but there's the mechanical piece. You can't, if you stay in the mystery, then you're gonna miss the daily discipline of getting in your word and spending time in prayer. And what you gonna say?
It reminds me of a story. Suzanne Wesley. Some of you probably don't know who Suzanne Wesley
I love
is.
this story.
And Suzanne Wesley was the mother of John Wesley. Some of you know John Wesley, who's part of the Great Awakening. And John Wesley was one of, I don't know how many kids, 13, something crazy. And so his mom had a lot. I mean, I got 5, bro. You know what I mean? I can't even imagine 13. But there's a story about Suzanne Wesley where she would, in the midst of having a house full of kids and wanting to spend time with God, she would take her apron and she would put it over her head to have one-on-one time with God in the middle of a room with her kids.
It's she would explain it as the tent of meeting, that she was, that's her time with the Lord.
So she would put it over her just to have time. That was a discipline. She didn't want to miss the discipline. She didn't want to miss the connection with God. And she was willing, even in the midst of a room full of kids, she would take that apron and put it over her head as a time to meet with the Lord. That's unbelievable.
And, you know, the Lord reminds me often that when I don't sit well with him, I can't sit well with other people. And
So good.
so not just staff, not
Yeah.
just friends, not just family, even my kids.
Yep.
So if I am not nurturing and spending time in relationship with him, becoming the person that he wants me to be,
Yeah.
then I can't do this well with anybody else.
Right.
And so time in the word and time in prayer is such a vital part
Absolutely.
of everything that I
Yeah.
do. And so that discipline, there's other disciplines like the taking care of the body and all that I've got to work on. Those are things I've got to work on. But the staying in the word and staying in prayer have always been a vital part of everything that I do.
Yeah.
When I was thinking about the never stay the same, and I know being in kids ministry, youth ministry, I was thinking about how I know as we parent our own kids, how discipline, I know you mentioned it briefly, how these kids are not disciplined like they used to be.
Wild over there.
Wild.
Julie, I know you can really.
Julie probably can relate to, yes. But I was thinking about it, and just from our parenting perspective, we have an almost 18-year-old. She'll be 18 here in just another week and a half, and it is hard. I think the older they've gotten, the harder. It's not that we haven't disciplined them, but it's hard to watch our kids go through hard things, and it's been a whole mind shift for us because we want to protect them. We want to keep them from failure or from hurt. And so this whole "you never stay the same" was a great reminder for me. And what we've really had to wrap our brains around with our kids is if we want to see growth out of them, we have to surrender them to what God is doing in their lives and what God is trying to grow out of them. And it has been through hardship. It has been through difficult relationships or struggles that they've faced, where we're left saying, God, what are you doing? Why are they going through this? But at the same time, allowing for them to go through it and supporting them through it, but allowing them to go through it so that God can produce whatever he's trying to produce out of their lives.
Yep.
And I just think in the generation parenting wise, parents want to be that helicopter. They want to protect them from anything hard or difficult and give them whatever it is that they want to protect them from that. But are we really helping our kids by not allowing for them to experience hard and to trust that God has a bigger purpose for their lives through it?
And one of the sayings we keep saying, this is going to be good for them.
This is going to be good for them. And that's what we have to keep, trusting God in that. And I think that's the case in our individual lives too, that God is trying to produce something. In verse 7, it says, endure hardships as discipline. God is treating you as sons, for what son is not disciplined by his father?
Yeah.
And when we know that the discipline that God is placing or is trying to accomplish in our lives, it's actually to help us, not to hurt us.
Yeah.
And keeping that mindset too, and being willing to surrender to that, say, okay, God, whatever you want to do in and through me in this, because he loves us.
Yeah.
That's why he's disciplining us. So keeping that in perspective. Well, your last point was get a grip. And
Come on now.
you and and you talked about how each season brings a different level of growth, and that oftentimes promotion leads to more responsibility, which I think we lose sight of that too, with that next level, with that next thing, that it's going to require more responsibility out of us. And you talked about how the form you were talking about, I don't know, you'll have to give us some context because I don't do any deadlifting or any of that. I know I look like I do, but I definitely don't.
100%.
But you were talking about changing the grip with your deadlift. Was that what it was? Go ahead, Jake, take over because you can give a little bit more context to this than
I don't really know how much more context I can give, but But I remember going from that high school level where it's like it was almost. It sounds really bad. It was almost easy for me,
Okay.
because it was No, I mean, I'm just like a big guy in general, right? So like when I was in high school, it was just like, oh, this guy's just big and he's strong, and so it's great. But when I went to college, the level was higher.
Yeah.
And what I learned was what I did in one season, it actually wasn't right at all. And I was actually hurting myself more than helping myself. And so when I went to this next level, this new level, I realized that the way that I was positioning my body, my hips were actually too tight. There are certain things and that I had to fix in order to do something correctly.
Yeah.
And sometimes in order to fix something and do it correctly, we almost have to like regress from what we thought we were at, from the level that we thought we were at. So I think in times where God disciplines us, we feel like we're taking a step back, or God is removing blessing from our life. But that's really not the case at all. He's just saying, no, you missed it the first time. And if you keep going at this rate, if you keep going with this form, with this idea of you thinking you're doing it right, you're not only going to hurt yourself, you're going to hurt people around you.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk about it in like other weightlifting aspects, but when you lift heavy in the gym, there's a thing called a spotter. Somebody who is near you, somebody who works out with you, somebody that is watching you. And if you are doing a weight that you cannot do and you have improper form and you drop it, if you are not responsible, you can hurt somebody else too.
Yeah.
And that's like really the heart behind this point about learning that correct form and the ideas of like different grips in order to like lift more, but that idea of responsibility, that is not just about you when you get to this point.
Right.
When you get to this next level, you're responsible for other people who are watching you in the gym or watching you in your life or are around you or are part of your ministry. Like you are responsible. And that's what God does to his kids who are good in one season. He's saying, I gave you one talent, good job. Here's 2. Here's 5. It's biblical. It's what Jesus taught,
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
the form is really important, how we live our lives.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Love it.
I've written down, correct your form. And that line like really spoke to me because again, I think that like you're saying, we're doing one thing, we don't even realize that it was wrong, or we didn't realize that like there's a better way until, you get someone in your life who, can help you, can, correct you, can discipline you and get you to places. And I think that, pride or whatever you might say sometimes keeps us, from, correcting our form because, it's like, you're already up here. Why am I going to digress? And I think that's something that hurts so many people is where they can't digress. They can't be, lesser than that they already are. And, that's the surrender to Jesus that you need to have, and just having people in your life is so important to get you to the next places. And, talking about discipline and reading our Bibles and things like that and being disciplined, while you're reading. I know that a couple weeks ago for E-Kids, I was reading through the Sermon in the Mount, and, so many things are, just hitting me, and it's like the being able to take that discipline and take those encouragements or whatever it is and going from there and being able to correct your form and knowing that, you don't always know everything, even if you think you do.
Right.
I just want to say big shout out to our next gen ministry, Julie with kids, Jake with our youth, and also Naomi with the nursery.
Yeah.
Because you guys, just so everyone knows, they're not taking care of your kids while you go to church.
Right.
They're helping form your kids while you're being formed in church.
Yeah.
And so you guys, I just want to share some love with y'all because you guys are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
One of the emphasis we have here at this church is the next generation. We talked about it on the retreat, generational.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
From the cradle to the grave, baby.
That's right.
And having that emphasis of loving that next generation and helping form them spiritually. So you guys are doing a fantastic job with that. So thank you for all you guys do. Julie, Naomi, Jake, you guys are awesome. Yeah. Big shout out to Pastor Jake too, man. Your development over the last few years has been awesome to see.
Yeah.
And it's just been great to watch you grow over the last several years to get in that pulpit, man, and preach the gospel. It's been awesome to see.
Yeah.
So great job this weekend.
I think this sermon was probably my favorite that you have spoken, and just watching you develop in not, I think a lot of times when people take that spot in the pulpit, they will try to imitate the leader, but
Yeah.
you are coming into your own and figuring out who you are and who God has called you to be as a preacher
Right.
or a speaker, and how God's just developed that in you. It's been awesome
Great.
to watch.
Yep.
Thank you.
So
Carly said something really similar yesterday, just like how it was like complete. But Pastor Mark, Pastor Ted, our team here, like legitimately, I would not be who I am today if it wasn't for our team. And Pastor Ted talks about it all the time. When he came 4 years ago, like in the midst of COVID, there was about 6 or 7 of us around the table, and now our team is about 20 people. But each of them have played a significant role in my life, and I know for me, this is a big family, so it's always. I learned so much. I love so much our kids ministry and Julie, how she leads it, and Naomi, because they directly flow into youth, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
even our production team, like we got Jay and Noah and Tim and Pete, and how excellent they do things, you know. And there's so much good, but it doesn't come unless like we allow others to speak into our life and to speak that those hard truths, really.
Yep.
Right.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
But
Hard to believe. Last week coming up, this Sunday coming up,
Sunday.
we're closing it out.
Crazy.
Closing out Grit.
And we're really excited about the fall, some things that are coming up this fall with a series. I know we're out of time, but we're getting ready, ramped up for State of the Union, man.
it's gonna be
New
awesome.
series starting in September. It's going to be good. And we're just excited about what this fall brings.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be awesome.
Well, Pastor Mark, would you like to close us out
Absolutely.
in prayer today?
Let's pray. Holy Spirit, thank you for being with us over the last several moments. Thank you for this message that Pastor Jake brought. And God, I pray that we would all continue to just develop into the people that you want us to be in times of discipline, Lord, times where we've got to go through hard. May we see the other side of it, God, that we are becoming molded, shaped into who you have called us to be, God. Thank you for our time together today. In Jesus' name, amen.